The original title of this presentation, when I first thought of it, was Killing the Sacred Cow of Ethical Culture. However, that title doesn't really reflect what this presentation has grown into. Just as with other topics I've presented, I've discovered that there's already a very large body of work on the subject, and I've also discovered that there's a huge amount I don't know. However, I think it's a critically important topic that we need to dig into and grapple with. Now, I want to tell you about something that happened last year while I was in Austin. For those of you who already know about this, I ask that you put aside what you know and come with me on my personal journey of my experience. And for those of you who don't know about this, please understand I'm only giving you my point of view, and there are certainly others. So last spring, I was one of our society's delegates to the annual American Ethical Union meeting. And one of the discussions that I was asked to attend concerned the Washington Ethical Society. Washington's membership was about to vote on a proposal that was approved by its board to also become a Unitarian Universalist fellowship while remaining an ethical society. This was of great concern to many members of the American Ethical Union and to the delegates who were attending. This society, our society, sent a letter in opposition which was signed by all of the past presidents who are still members. So I listened to the representatives from Washington present what they were doing, and I listened to the voices in opposition. One of the things I heard over and over again was that Unitarian fellowships are different from ethical culture, and those differences are important. So I'd like everyone to consider the following statement. A caring, open-minded religion that encourages you to seek your own spiritual path. Our faith draws on many religious traditions, welcoming people with different beliefs. We are united by shared values, not by creed or dogma. Our congregations are places where people gather to nurture their spirits and put their faith into action by helping to make our communities and the world a better place. Now, if you hadn't heard everything that I'd said a few minutes ago, this could describe ethical culture, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this statement was taken from the Unitarian Universalist website and actually begins with the words, Unitarian Universalism is. So, from what I observed in the meeting, the folks from Washington were focusing on what was the same, and those from ethical culture were focusing on what was different. All of a sudden, my religion, ethical culture, which has no creed, developed one in a hurry. One person said that Unitarian Universalist fellowships are like sister organizations to ethical culture. But ethical societies are different, and if we allow Washington to become both, they might not really be an ethical society anymore. Well, the delegates from Washington pointed out that they fully intended to remain an ethical society. Their name was going to remain the Washington Ethical Society. They were going to continue to teach ethical culture. They even had several members who would be sitting on the American Ethical Union board. Still, there were those who believed that if the Washington Ethical Society also became a Unitarian fellowship, they should not be allowed to remain an ethical society. To me, I was hearing the same kind of arguments that were used to object to interfaith or interracial marriage. During the Q&A, I had my hand up for a long time. As I recall, I got the last word. Well, by that point, I really had lost it. I said that I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I said that it was critically important that those of us who are like-minded learn to work together. I pointed out that in this country, those on the far right had figured out how to put aside their differences and work towards shared goals. How could it be that we who were supposed to believe in tolerance couldn't do the same? I also pointed out that my family left a Unitarian fellowship to join an ethical society, so I know they're different. But you can't, on one hand, say that they are like a sister, and then on the other hand say, well, we can't join them. I added that it isn't the identity that's important, but rather the ideas and actions that we take. If our ideas are good and sound, then there will always be someone carrying them forward. Does it have to be called an ethical society? Is it our group that's important, or is it what we stand for? Well, this was the event that got me thinking, how could something like this happen? How could so many people not understand that we need to expand our thinking and be more inclusive? It turns out that this is not the first time in the history of ethical culture that we have chosen not to join with like-minded groups. Well, here are some of my conclusions and some ideas about how to move forward. Obsolete tribal survival mechanisms are at work. In the early days of human existence, the group was essential for survival. The individual and the group depended on each other. Our instinctive behavior was to form groups and then to express our identity in terms of the group. We are pack animals. The individual didn't have the tools to survive. The group did. So, in the early period of our existence, the survival of the group was as important as our own. In fact, they were the same thing. Today, at an intellectual level, we may understand that our survival no longer depends on the group. But when it comes to making decisions, we still unwittingly confuse the group's identity with our own. When the group is a collection of people who have assembled around an idea, we may tend to believe that only our group can carry this idea forward. It isn't that we're trying to do this. It's something that we do instinctively. So, a collective identity refers to individuals' sense of belonging to a group. From the perspective of the individual, the collective identity forms a part of his or her personal identity. Sometimes, the sense of belonging to a group will be so strong that it will trump the person's personal identity. The person may be willing to take great risks up to and including loss of life. There was an article in the paper this past week about a woman who was arrested in Iraq, and she had recruited and trained over 80 women to be suicide bombers. Well, how could this happen? When you're on the outside and have no interest in the group struggle, the struggle itself